A new girl. Bullies everywhere. But they made one deadly mistake. They didn't know who they were messing with. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic stories like this. The bullies corner her at the gas station, thinking they've won. But this quiet girl, she's not who they think she is. Watch what happens next as her karate skills kick in and the tables turn. The bell rang sharp at 3 p.m., echoing through the hallways of Hill Ridge High like a warning shot. Students spilled into the corridors, their laughter and chatter bouncing off lockers and tiled floors. Amid the flow of teens was a quiet girl with tightly braided hair, a firm grip on her worn-out backpack, and eyes that studied every movement around her. Her name was Amara. She was new. Transferred from the city, she was barely 2 weeks into her first semester. Teachers liked her. Sharp, quiet, focused. But students? They didn't know what to make of her. She didn't laugh much, didn't gossip, didn't ask to join cliques. That alone made her a target. Especially for Kyle and his crew. Kyle, with his bleached hair, sarcastic grin, and endless need for attention, had ruled the junior hallway since freshman year. He didn't like unknowns, and Amara was just that. She never flinched when he bumped into her accidentally, never looked scared when his girlfriend Sky whispered things loud enough to hurt. That unnerved him. Today Amara had made it to the end of the day with only one confrontation, a spilled tray in the cafeteria. But even that was a setup. Sky had extended her foot at just the right moment. Amara's lunch ended up splattered across her uniform. She didn't shout. She didn't fight back. She only stared, and that stare made Sky's skin crawl. She's not normal, Sky muttered later as they leaned against Kyle's truck after school. Like, she didn't even blink. Kyle smirked. Let's see what makes her blink then. It started as a casual plan. Meet Amara behind the gym. Make her sweat a little. Nothing serious. Just a scare. But as the crew of 5 boys and 2 girls watched her head toward the gate alone, Amara always walked. No bus, no ride. They followed. The sun was dipping behind the trees, casting long golden shadows on the concrete. The back of the gym was silent, lined with chain-link fences and abandoned benches. Perfect. Hey, new girl, called out Deshaun, one of Kyle's boys, swaggering ahead. You dropped your attitude. Amara stopped. She turned slowly, her eyes moving from face to face. No panic, no surprise, just silence. Kyle stepped forward. You don't talk much, huh? Or is it you don't know how to respect people? Amara met his gaze. Calm, cold. I didn't ask for any of this. That irritated Kyle. You walk around like you're better than everyone. Maybe it's time someone reminded you where you are. He moved closer, puffing his chest like a showman. But before his foot even touched the gravel beside her, Amara adjusted her stance. Subtle. Weight shifted to her back leg. One hand relaxed by her side. And then nothing. They laughed. She's posing like she's about to do karate, someone sneered. Amara said nothing. But her eyes were calculating every angle. Kyle reached forward to shove her. That was his first mistake. In a blur, her hand caught his wrist. Not violently, not aggressively, just firm, controlled. His face changed instantly. What? With a swift pivot, she turned his arm and stepped aside. Kyle found himself spinning, stumbling, his pride bruised harder than his wrist. What the hell? He barked. The group fell silent for a moment. Then Sky screamed, get her. Amara dropped her backpack. Her muscles tensed. This wasn't new to her. It was familiar. Trained. Deshaun lunged first, wide swing. She ducked, spun low, and swept his legs. He crashed hard into the ground. 2 others charged. Amara dodged one, gripped the other's collar and turned his momentum against him, flipping him into the wall. It wasn't messy. Every move looked like she had rehearsed it 1,000 times. Because she had. Back in her old city, she trained at her uncle's dojo. Black belt by 13. Tournaments by 14. She didn't talk about it because there was nothing to prove. Not until now. Now they had cornered her. Now they would see. As 2 more boys hesitated, she turned to Sky, who had picked up a rock. Amara's eyes narrowed. Don't. But Sky screamed and ran toward her anyway. Sky hurled the rock, but her throw was sloppy, fueled by fear rather than strength. Amara sidestepped it with ease. The stone bounced harmlessly off the ground behind her. Is that all? She said quietly. Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. But it cut through the silence like a blade. The last 2 guys looked at each other. Fear started replacing adrenaline. This wasn't what they signed up for. This wasn't some helpless new girl. Kyle groaned from the dirt, still struggling to push himself up. She's a freak, he hissed. Amara turned to him. You think being quiet makes someone weak? You thought you could corner me and walk away proud. But people like you don't understand that silence is a choice. I just chose to act. The parking lot was still. Somewhere in the distance, a car alarm chirped once and went silent again. Sirens. Someone must have called them. Sky dropped what was in her hand. One of the boys helped Deshaun to his feet, limping badly. No one spoke, but Amara didn't move. She simply picked up her backpack, her breathing steady, her eyes still alert. The group backed away. Kyle, humiliated and bruised, didn't dare speak again. Amara walked past them like they were nothing but shadows, her head high, her steps calm, her secret no longer a secret. She disappeared around the corner of the gym as the first patrol car turned into the school gates, tires screeching slightly on the pavement. But that's not where the story ends. Not even close. The following day, Amara walked through the school's halls as if nothing had happened. There was no swelling pride, no smug smile, just the quiet determination to keep her head low, stay focused on her studies, and avoid the chaos she'd seen in the hallway the day before. But the word had spread fast. By lunchtime, whispers echoed through the cafeteria. Some of the kids had seen the fight behind the gym, others heard it from their friends, and some were just now learning about the quiet girl who could take down an entire gang of bullies with a single motion. And then there was the inevitable shift. Kyle and his crew weren't content with losing the battle. No, now they were obsessed with the idea that Amara was something they couldn't control, something they couldn't intimidate. Their embarrassment wasn't something they were willing to swallow. So they planned. They waited. That afternoon, during the last class, Amara's focus was disrupted by a message from her phone. She wasn't the type to check messages in class, but her best friend Jasmine had written something that caught her attention. Amara, please don't go near the gym after school today. They're planning something. Please be careful. Amara looked up at the clock. 2:30 p.m. Her stomach tightened, but she couldn't afford to run. Running would show fear, and fear was something she wasn't ready to show anyone, not even to herself. The bell rang, signaling the end of the school day. Students rushed through the halls, eager to escape the confines of their classrooms. Amara, however, stayed at her desk for a moment, watching the crowd thin out. Her thoughts raced. She couldn't run. She wouldn't, but she wasn't about to walk into a trap either. She would have to be smart. She gathered her things slowly, her gaze drifting to the window. She could hear the murmur of kids outside, unaware of what lay ahead. And then the faintest sound, a car door slamming shut, caught her attention. Amara grabbed her bag and left the classroom with a calm determination. The school grounds were quiet, save for a few scattered groups chatting near the steps. But as Amara walked toward the back of the school where the gym stood, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The air felt heavier than usual. The winds picked up, and she could sense the presence of someone, or rather something, waiting. Suddenly, a hand gripped her arm from behind, yanking her into a corner between two buildings. It was Kyle. "Where do you think you're going, freak?" he growled. He was flanked by two of his crew members, Deshaun and Marcus, both wearing the same arrogant smirks they had yesterday. Amara didn't flinch. "You really think you can walk around here and not pay the price for what you did to us?" Kyle spat. "I didn't do anything," Amara replied, her voice calm but sharp. "You attacked me. I defended myself." Kyle's eyes narrowed, his hand still clutching her arm. "That's where you're wrong, sweetheart. You think this is over? No. This time, we're going to teach you a real lesson." "Let go of me, Kyle," Amara said coldly, looking straight into his eyes. "You don't want to do this." But Kyle only laughed. "Oh, I think we do." He nodded, signaling to Deshaun and Marcus to step forward. Deshaun cracked his knuckles, while Marcus brandished a metal rod. Amara felt the weight of the situation start to press down on her. But she wouldn't back down. Not this time. Not ever. She breathed deeply, reminding herself of everything her uncle had taught her. The breathing exercises, the focus, the calm before action. Without warning, Amara pivoted her body, swinging her leg in a smooth, calculated motion that landed squarely on Marcus's side. He was sent stumbling back, crashing into the wall. Before Kyle could react, she spun on her heel, thrusting her elbow into Deshaun's chest. He fell back, gasping for air. Kyle's smug grin faltered. "What the hell?" he muttered, clearly thrown off guard by how quickly she moved. His hand dropped from her arm, and in that instant, Amara stepped back, keeping herself balanced. Amara's stance shifted, and she wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was taking control. She was a fighter. "You made your choice," Amara said, her voice unwavering, "and you won't like the consequences." But Kyle wasn't done yet. He lunged at her, throwing a wild punch that she easily dodged. His anger was his downfall. With one swift motion, Amara grabbed his wrist, twisting it in a controlled hold. She pulled him off balance, throwing him to the ground. Kyle lay there, breathing heavily, his face flushed with humiliation. The group of bullies had underestimated her. Now they were too stunned to do anything except look at each other, unsure of what to do next. Amara stood tall, breathing slowly. Her heart pounded, but her body was steady. Amara knew this fight wasn't over. Not yet. But today she had proven one thing. No one would push her around again. Amara walked away from the group of stunned bullies, her heart still pounding in her chest. She didn't feel fear anymore, just a quiet sense of empowerment. The adrenaline had worn off, but her muscles still hummed with the energy of the fight. She knew she couldn't let her guard down. As she walked past the gym, she saw the familiar faces of students standing in groups watching. Some whispered, others stared, but no one approached her. No one wanted to get caught in the aftermath of what had just happened. Word would spread like wildfire, and soon everyone at Hill Ridge High would know that Amara wasn't someone to mess with. But she didn't care about their whispers. She cared about her own peace. She cared about staying strong. The next morning, the rumors started. Amara barely made it through the school doors before she felt the shift. Whispers buzzed in the hallways. Some of the kids stared at her like she was a ghost. Others gave her sideways glances, afraid to even say hello. But one person couldn't resist. Jasmine, the girl who sat beside her in chemistry, was the first to approach her after the bell rang. Her brown eyes were wide with concern. "You really took them all down?" Jasmine asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I heard you broke Kyle's arm." Amara shook her head, trying to brush off the exaggerated rumors. "I didn't break anything. Just put them in their place." Jasmine's expression softened. "That's insane. I've never seen someone do what you did. It's like they were all over you. But you—" "I know how to defend myself," Amara interrupted. "I've been training for years." Jasmine was silent for a moment. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "I didn't need to, and I'm not interested in drawing attention." But Jasmine wasn't satisfied with that answer. "You're different, Amara. You're not like the rest of us. You don't talk, you don't hang out with anyone. I get why people are scared of you." Amara sighed, her mind racing with the weight of Jasmine's words. "I'm not here to make friends. I'm just here to get through the day, that's all." Before Jasmine could respond, the bell rang, signaling the start of their next class. Amara grabbed her books and made her way toward the door, but she felt a new pair of eyes on her, one that wasn't filled with fear, but something else entirely. As she stepped out into the hallway, her instincts kicked in. She could feel someone watching her from behind. She turned around just as Sky, Kyle's girlfriend, stepped into her path. Sky's eyes were filled with a mix of anger and something else Amara couldn't quite place. Her usual smirk was gone, replaced with a tight, almost worried expression. "You think you can just do whatever you want?" Sky spat, taking a step closer. Amara didn't flinch. She didn't even feel fear. "I didn't start anything. You and your boyfriend did. You're dangerous, you know that?" Sky said, crossing her arms. "You're nothing but trouble." Amara's gaze remained steady. "I'm not here to be anyone's problem." "Maybe you don't get it," Sky continued, her voice rising. "You think this is over. You think because you knocked a few guys down, it's done. You'll pay for this." Amara took a deep breath, sensing that Sky was about to escalate things. But she wasn't about to back down. "Not this time. I don't want trouble, Sky," she said firmly. "But if you or anyone else tries to push me again, I'll fight back. Understand?" Sky didn't respond immediately. Her eyes flicked to Amara's stance, steady, unyielding. And for a split second, Amara saw the flicker of doubt in Sky's eyes. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Sky turned sharply, brushing past Amara as if to dismiss her. "We'll see who gets the last word in this." Amara stood there for a moment, her gaze following Sky's retreating form. She knew this wasn't over. No one could let an incident like that go so easily. But she didn't feel afraid. If anything, she felt more certain than ever that she had what it took to face whatever came next. That afternoon, after school, Amara sat on the steps of the school courtyard, waiting for the bus. The day had been tense, every hallway and corner feeling like a potential battleground, but she wasn't going to let the bullies control her. Not anymore. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out to find a message from Jasmine. "Are you okay? I know they're probably talking about you. But just know, some of us have your back." Amara smiled softly and replied, "Thanks. But I don't need anyone to fight my battles. I've got this." Her response was quiet but firm, and as she stood to leave, she felt something shift inside her, a sense of purpose. Her self-defense training hadn't just prepared her to fight back physically. It had prepared her to stand tall, to protect her boundaries, to show the world that she would no longer be silenced. The bus pulled up, and she climbed on, ready for whatever came next. The following week, Amara had become the center of attention at Hill Ridge High. but not in the way she wanted. Whispers about her battle with the bullies spread like wildfire, and the buzz only intensified when Kyle's crew started backing off. Kyle himself, after a humiliating defeat, was never quite the same. He avoided Amara's gaze in the hallways, and whenever he walked past, he seemed to shrink just a little. The other students noticed, and the power dynamic within the school began to shift. Some saw Amara as a quiet hero, others were still too afraid to approach her. But Amara didn't care about any of that. She had a goal: keep her head down and focus on her grades. She didn't want to be a spectacle. All she ever wanted was to find a place where she could just exist, but that wasn't going to happen anytime soon. The bullies hadn't given up. They never did. It was during lunch hour that the situation escalated again. Amara was sitting by herself, eating her sandwich at the farthest corner of the cafeteria, when she noticed Sky sitting with a group of girls whispering to them. Her eyes kept flicking toward Amara, and Amara knew something was coming. Sure enough, a few minutes later, Sky stood up and walked toward her table, her heels clicking loudly on the tile floor. She wasn't alone this time. Kyle's boys followed her. Deshaun, Marcus, and another guy who had been part of the crew now formed a tight circle around her. Amara stayed seated, not moving an inch. She didn't need to. She knew exactly why they were here. The bullies hadn't given up on trying to put her in her place, but this time, it was different. They were no longer just trying to intimidate her. They were trying to break her. "Hey, freak," Sky called, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Thought you were done being the center of attention." Amara looked up, locking eyes with Sky. "You've got a lot to say for someone who lost yesterday." Sky's eyes narrowed. She didn't like being reminded of the humiliating defeat her crew suffered, but she didn't back down. "We weren't the only ones embarrassed," Sky shot back. "It's not just you we have to deal with. Everyone's talking about how you're some kind of tough girl. You're not special, Amara. You're just some black girl from the city who thinks she can fight." Amara's pulse quickened, but she didn't let it show. Her breathing remained steady. "You don't know anything about me." "Oh, I know enough," Sky sneered. "You're the kind of girl who thinks she can get away with anything. But guess what? You're not untouchable. You'll regret ever crossing us." Amara knew exactly where this was going. She had been here before, at other schools, in other situations, but this was different. She was different. The other students around them were starting to watch. The tension was so thick you could almost feel it in the air. No one dared to speak. No one dared to intervene. Sky leaned closer, her voice low but menacing. "We're going to make sure you learn your place, Amara. You're going to wish you stayed in the city." Amara stood up suddenly, moving with such quickness that Sky and the others didn't know what hit them. She pushed through the circle of boys, her movements fluid and deliberate, like she had done this 1,000 times. Deshaun, always the first to charge, lunged at her, hands outstretched, but Amara didn't flinch. She twisted his arm and pushed him into Marcus, who stumbled backward. She kept moving, not pausing for even a second. Her hands were swift and precise, flipping one of the boys, disarming another with nothing more than a sharp jab to the ribs. Kyle stood there, stunned, watching his crew get taken down one by one, helpless. Amara wasn't just fighting back. She was dismantling them, one move at a time. Sky stood at the edge of the chaos, eyes wide, mouth slightly agape. She had seen Amara in action before, but never like this. The way she moved, like a force of nature, unstoppable, calm, and controlled. She had underestimated her. Everyone had. "You think this is over?" Sky finally shouted, her voice rising in panic. But Amara didn't answer. Instead, she straightened up, brushing her hands off as if she had just done something insignificant. "I don't fight for attention," Amara said, her voice steady and cold. "I fight for respect. And if you want to mess with me, you better be prepared for the consequences." Sky swallowed hard but said nothing. The group of boys, humiliated and bruised, slowly backed away, nursing their wounds. Amara turned her back on them and walked toward the door, leaving the cafeteria in silence. The room was still, but the weight of what had just happened hung in the air. No one spoke, no one dared. But as Amara exited the cafeteria, she caught the eyes of several students, some nodding at her in respect, others too stunned to react. The message had been made clear. She wasn't someone to be messed with. The bell rang for the last class of the day, but Amara didn't go straight to her next class. Instead, she stood outside the school, waiting. Her mind was focused. She didn't feel the rush of adrenaline anymore, just a quiet certainty. This wasn't about fighting. It was about control, about showing others that no one could walk all over her. And as she stood there, waiting for her ride, she felt a sense of relief settle over her. For the first time in a long time, Amara was free from the weight of the bullies' words and their threats. She didn't need to fight to prove herself anymore. She had already won. The days following the confrontation behind the gym felt like a slow, simmering change. Hillridge High was no longer the same place it had been just weeks ago. Amara's name was on everyone's lips, but not in the way she feared. It wasn't just the bullies talking about her, it was the entire school. Some were still skeptical, whispering behind her back, but more were starting to see her for what she truly was, a survivor, a warrior, someone who would never be broken. The tension in the hallways had shifted, though. When Amara walked through the school, there were no more looks of fear or resentment. The students, especially the ones who had once ridiculed her, now moved aside, giving her the space to walk without interruption. The atmosphere was different, as if everyone had suddenly realized that they had underestimated her. But not everyone was convinced that this shift in power was a good thing. Kyle and his crew, bruised both physically and mentally, stayed away from Amara, but their defeat weighed on them. It wasn't the first time someone had stood up to them, but it was the first time they had been so thoroughly beaten. Kyle, once the loudest and most confident student in the school, now kept his head down. The respect he once commanded was slipping through his fingers, and there was nothing he could do to get it back. That's when Sky stepped in. Sky had always been Kyle's #1 supporter, his ride or die. But after the fight, something in her had changed too. The smugness that had once been a permanent fixture on her face faded into frustration. She'd never been this humiliated in front of the entire school. Her reputation as the queen bee of Hillridge High had cracked, and it hurt. Sky had been the one who started it all, who pushed Amara, who mocked her, who stood behind the bullying. Now she realized that it had all backfired. The shame she felt wasn't just about losing to Amara, it was about her own role in it. As the days wore on, Sky watched from a distance as Amara sat alone at lunch, quietly reading or doing her homework. Amara wasn't popular. She didn't need to be, and that drove Sky mad. It wasn't about social status, it was about strength, something Sky had never understood until now. It was on a Thursday afternoon, a week after the fight, that Sky found herself standing near the gate by the school parking lot, watching Amara leave. She hesitated, biting her lip. This was it, the confrontation that had been looming for days. Sky had avoided it, but now she couldn't keep running from it. Amara had humiliated her, but more importantly, Amara had exposed something in Sky that she wasn't sure how to fix. Sky walked up to Amara, who was just about to step onto the sidewalk. "Amara," she called out softly. Amara turned, her expression neutral but alert. She was always on guard, and Sky respected that. "What do you want?" Amara asked. Sky swallowed. This wasn't easy, but she needed to say it. I owe you an apology," Sky said, her voice tight but sincere. "I shouldn't have done what I did. It was wrong. You didn't deserve any of it." Amara studied her, as if weighing her words. "I didn't expect an apology." "I know you didn't," Sky replied, "but I'm giving it anyway. You were right. I messed up." For a long moment, the two girls stood in silence, the noise of the bustling school around them fading into the background. "You don't have to apologize, Sky," Amara said finally, her voice softening just slightly. "But I appreciate it." Sky looked down at the ground, the weight of the conversation pressing down on her shoulders. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she said, "but I want you to know that I see you differently now. I can't be like I was before." Amara nodded. Good. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no hugs, no tear-filled confessions, but that moment, that brief exchange, was more powerful than any apology or fight. Amara had been the bigger person. She always had been. She didn't need validation from Sky, but it was clear that Sky had found a little piece of herself in Amara, and that for both of them was enough. The days passed quickly after that. Amara kept walking the halls with her head high, but something had shifted. She felt stronger than ever, not just from her self-defense skills, but from the knowledge that she had proven her worth on her own terms. She continued to study, continued to focus on her future. She was still the new girl, still an outsider in a place she had barely started to understand. But now, she didn't need to belong. She had already made a name for herself, and when the year ended, Amara looked back on her time at Hillridge High. Not for the fights or the drama, but for the lesson she had learned. Strength wasn't about taking down the bullies. It was about standing tall, no matter what the world threw at you.